Good evening. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Good crowd actually tonight. I want to thank Kevin Burns and Mark Lieberman. This was no small feat to pull this off. And I'd like to thank Councilman Lachterman for agreeing to debate tonight. I am Jann Mirchandani, for those of you who don't know me. I grew up upstate in a community very similar to Yorktown. I went to college in Buffalo, where I met my now husband, somewhere in the audience. We moved to Co-op City after graduating, and we lived in the Bronx for 10 years, before settling here in Yorktown 20 plus years ago, where we raised our 2 children, both graduates of Yorktown High School. Having lived in other places, I can appreciate what makes Yorktown special. The great schools, our history. I can also appreciate what we can learn from other communities. Redevelopment to rehabilitate empty buildings. Transitioning to more sustainable practices to save money and do our part to reduce our carbon footprint. Our town is not made up of only one party, but our town board is. It does not reflect the diversity of our town, diversity of experience, diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds. There is a lot of talk about experience because experience matters, but experience is more than holding an elected position. True leadership means bringing people together, building coalitions, and driving collaborative solutions. Every successful board I've served on had 3 things in common: diverse skills and experience of board members, independence and objectivity of the board members, clear governance structure and adherence to that governance and adherence to the processes that promote transparency, ethical conduct, and effective oversight. As the first female council commissioner for the Boy Scouts of America, Greater Hudson Valley Council, I am the highest ranking volunteer in the council that oversees 7 counties. I am a member of the key 3 of the executive board. I helped establish the policy that merged 2 Boy Scout councils, now the largest in the Northeast. That merger process is now the national model for other such mergers. It was not easy, as you can imagine, making a change to an organization like the Boy Scouts. We had to ask tough questions and make hard decisions to plan for the future. These actions allowed us to emerge from the pandemic financially solvent. We increased efficiencies, and in fact, we grew membership at a time when many organizations are struggling to retain their membership. That's what Yorktown needs, a board that will ask the tough questions, consider all of the stakeholders, and make the tough calls, and importantly, ensure an open and transparent process to plan for the future. And that's what I will deliver for all of our residents. Thank you.
Okay, now we'd like to bring up Ed Lachterman. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank Kevin and Mark for setting this up, Jann for hopefully a very lively debate tonight on the issues that affect Yorktown. I am a just about 30-year resident of Yorktown, although those first few years went very quick because I was living with my mother-in-law. So it's so much fun, Rosie, but thank you for that. My wife was born in this town. Her younger brother, who's in the audience today, was born in this town. My mother-in-law has been here since '57. Yorktown is very special to me. It's sort of that in-between for me because I grew up in Yonkers and I went to college in Cobleskill. So I learned quite a bit. You know, we had major differences. And I've worked with a lot of different people. I will address like my time on the town board. In the 8 years I've been there, we have worked collaboratively with all branches of government and all different parties. In fact, at one time it was a 3-2 majority for Democrats. We worked collaboratively. I know Lon Gilbert was here today. We've worked together very well. And that's what government should be. I know there's a question on diversity of background and diversity of thought. I don't know if you've listened to any of our board meetings, but between Sergio, Luciana, Patrick, and myself, there's so much difference and so many opinions and so much that is not sort of up for grabs there, so to speak. We listen to each other, we hear each other, and we have the debates, and under my administration, we are doing that talking in public. In fact, I was criticized because we put a law out and we wanted public opinion. There were changes that needed to be made, we heard them. Those changes will be made, but that's the process. That's what it's about. We could talk about all the different things, but really there's a process that's there and we follow it. And I think all the town boards I've served on have done an excellent job. I've also had the pleasure of working with the different committees, seniors, planning, conservation, zoning, veterans advisory. I've worked with our kids. You get a lot. You get a lot of input on what people feel is right in Yorktown. And we really, really try to strive and do that, and that will be my administration. Not the way I want to be here. This is not an easy thing for me. Tommy was a dear friend. We've worked together. We collaborated with different areas in town, and we think that's important. My gift to me is being able to work with all of our community groups that I have, the American Legion, the Lions, UFT, my brother Vinny, so many great organizations that I've been there, Yorktown Against Heroin. That's what makes it special, so thank you.
What is your position on a one-party town board? You did one.
Well, I think I've kind of gone on the record as saying I'm not pro one-party board. I think that we have a pretty even split, actually, between Democrats, and actually Democrats, frankly, have the slight advantage in terms of numbers over Republicans. We have a very solid middle third of unaffiliated voters, and I don't think that that representation is reflected on our current town board. And I'm sure that the, Councilman Lachterman is probably thinking, well, Jann, we have, supermajority in Albany. And I would just simply say to that, yes, we do have a majority in Albany, but there are plenty of Republicans. We have some notable hometown folks that are representing Yorktown up in Albany. And I would also go on to say that, when we look at the makeup of our representation in Albany, we have representatives from rural areas, from suburban areas, as well as some of our urban centers. And I think that representation and that diversity is very important, and I would like to see that here in Yorktown as well.
So, from the point of view of a one-party board, we are here where the rubber hits the ground. We're working for the people of Yorktown, and we don't make the decisions that are the national or even state decisions. Some of them affect us, they come down onto us. But our decisions are all nuts and bolts decisions. The supervisor position in particular, there is only one. So you cannot balance that with, well, we want one Democrat and one Republican. It just doesn't work. The supervisor is not a mayor. It's a position that you have to have experience for, knowledge for, and be able to be that person really making all the decisions. Tommy used to say it all the time. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or a duck. The decisions that affect our pocketbooks, that affect our tables, those are the tax things. That's how we're investing in our community, what we're doing to move forward. And I will say one of the most depressing days I had in Albany was taking up some Vietnam vets during budget time. It was great bringing the Vietnam vets up for Vietnam Veteran Day. But I sat around and I watched all of these people sitting on one side of the room playing on their phones. And I asked our assemblyman, what is happening here? He said, oh, those are the Republicans. We will be told what the budget is going to be and how the vote is going to go, and we don't really have input in it. To me, that doesn't matter how diverse you are. When you have that supermajority, you're in trouble. Thank you.
30 seconds to rebut, I believe.
Yes.
So I just want to clarify, the decisions that affect our taxpayers are actually made by the entire board. So the management, the day-to-day management is done by the supervisor, and I think that's an important distinction that wasn't really made clear. The decisions, how that money is spent, those dollars are being decided by the town board. And I think it is important to have adequate representation when those decisions are being made. And the supervisor role needs to be management as well as the administrator.
Next question. Currently, if the ethics board substantiates an ethics complaint, it's up to the town board to determine if and what the consequences should be. What would your opinion be of having an outside ombudsman making these decisions to avoid the appearance of bias?
So we currently follow a law that was actually, I believe, written under former Supervisor Susan Siegel. The law has some things that need to be changed. It is the way the town has chosen to go. To use an outside ombudsman, I guess, could be a solution to take it out of the hands. Yorktown did something very smart, though, when they made their ethics law. They made sure that it wasn't weighted, so a town board could staff it the way they wanted, so to speak. You have to have two people on either party with one person with no affiliation. And actually, it could be two with no affiliation, one a Democrat or one Republican. It could vary, but they make sure that there is not an uneven sway there. So that's something that is very, very well thought out, in my opinion. As for the decision process and what happens, yeah, it is definitely something that is a questionable thing, because there are some things, we've had instances in the town years back where some things rose to a level that it was reported to the district attorney's office. Some things have to be, and that's really where the town board and their attorney would be, hey, you know what, this is a recommendation and this is why. I just don't feel that it is a job of the ethics committee to be investigative in areas that are not a complaint. It's important that there's that separation. That's why we have police. That's why we have a district attorney. That's why there are laws that are outstanding. We're looking for ethical violations, not broken laws. If you find them, though, they get reported. This happened with our Board of Health in Westchester, and it's an important aspect of what their responsibilities are.
I think an ombudsman, that's a very hard word to say. An ombudsman would probably be a very good addition to the mix. I'd obviously we'd have to look at how that law was written and what those rules were. You know, I think the bottom line is, I think when it comes to transparency and bringing these findings forward, I think we really need to err on the side of public interest over, protecting elected officials. And I say that now, I say that whether I'm an elected official or not. I think that we need to err on the side of public interest. In fact, Councilman Lachterman said a number of years ago at a town board meeting that it was imperative that we share these results. I think he's changed his, at least according to the last board meeting when we were discussing the ethics law, there was a slightly different tune being sung at that point. I think that we really need to make sure that we have a well-written, well-articulated law that includes both direct and indirect benefit prohibitions, and in fact that wasn't what was in the current law. And I think that's really an oversight. I think there was a lot of gaps that were added to the law, which are very concerning to me.
So, with my rebuttal, I will address the fact that I made a statement basically saying that a accusation is not made public until there is a ruling. This is something I think you would understand at this point. It is immoral to accuse someone of something and then use it before there's a decision to try to sway the public. That is not what our government should be about. That is not what we have to look at. We need to make sure that once a decision is made, then it's made public, and I've always felt that way.
All right, 30 seconds, correct?
Well, hold on, I didn't get 30 seconds on the first one. The first one I did not. It only went one rebuttal.
Are we accumulating all of our time on use?
Excuse me, can I have a ruling on is there more than one rebuttal?
Well, I was not offered the chance of rebuttal after the first question. I will let the rebuttal go. She can rebuttal.
So, I get 30 seconds. So the comment that was made previously at a town board meeting was, when there was an accusation, I believe the quote was something along the lines of, it is imperative to share this information because to not share it skews the perception and leaves a bad taste, I'm paraphrasing at this point, against the entire board. And I actually agree with that. I think that if there's accusations made, then I think the public has the right to know what is happening, assuming that there is anything to report.
May I take my original 30-second rebuttal?
Oh my God.
Ruling from ruling? Can I take my
Yes, you can.
Thank you. So once again, the results should always be put out there. You do not make an accusation and then politicize it, because we've had many cases that has happened, that the ruling body has found that it is not an accurate assessment, and it's already too late. Once you let the cat out of the bag, it ain't getting back in there that easy. Thank you.
Okay, senior housing has been an ongoing issue in Yorktown. What do you think can be done to ensure that seniors who want to downsize but who do not want to leave Yorktown can be accommodated? My pet issue.
I think that we do need facilities, we need options for seniors, and frankly, all of our demographics, younger people, working people. I think we do need more options. Unfortunately, that's not really what's coming into Yorktown. I would like to see that we actually are holding developers to a higher standard. I'd like to see that we are not giving away 45B tax exemptions for clear cutting and for developing new property. I think that we should really focus that law on encouraging redevelopment of our existing structures so that we're placing less of a burden on our infrastructure. And I think that when we say senior-friendly housing, I think we need to be really clear that living on the first floor doesn't necessarily mean it's senior-friendly. So I think we need to really be careful and clear about how we're defining that. And I think that we just need more price points. Right now we have housing that's coming in great density, which, you know, we do need housing. I think the density is a little bit high where it's going in now. I'd like to see some of those units being made affordable so that we can have seniors that can afford housing. I've spoken to plenty of residents in Yorktown. I think of one couple in particular. They said they can't afford to downsize even with all of this new development coming in because it's not meant to be affordable housing, even though it's claimed to be senior housing.
So I've always believed in diversity of housing, and I think my record reflects that with the projects that have come in. As for senior in particular, I've heard it many times from Rosemary, sitting on the Senior Advisory Committee, that it's a need. We have people who don't want to leave their friends, don't want to leave their family, don't want to leave their church and their community. And I understand that. My mother-in-law has lived here since 1957. She does not want to go anywhere else, and I respect that. We are looking at different projects coming in. Soundview is not the only one. We have something up at the old field home that they have a 55 and older community looking to come in. We have something at the original contractors registry that's looking to have 55 and over active. So different aspects. As for affordability and as for the people being able to move into them, I know what my mother-in-law paid for a house. I know what she could sell it for. She would very well be able to do it. And I only use this example because Jenny Menton once yelled at us, said, "Don't tell me what I can afford or can't afford." That's up to the people. There is a supply and demand. We are supposed to be able to have things that they can move into. We have to have offerings. And the important thing to remember, because it's been spoken about, these units pay taxes. Granted, kids are coming in for the houses, We cannot hold the developer to say, hey, how many kids do you think are going to move into the houses that people are moving out of to come in? Because we don't really know if it's going to be Yorktown people moving in, Cortland, Somers. So the taxes go to help the schools. A lot of these projects will bring in over $1 million in taxes combined, and probably about $870,000 of that will end up right back into our school systems, even though they're not putting the kids into schools. So, thank you.
Wait. So just in terms of, what we can expect in terms of the students coming in, I think that that's kind of a false analogy. The school system, Yorktown school system, just did a bond, in fact, they passed 2 bonds because they were able to assess based on the needs, the expected needs based on the new development coming in. So I just want to point that out. The other thing that I think it's important to realize is that, when we talk about our seniors, we have seniors at all socioeconomic levels, and we do need to be mindful about what they can afford.
So the schools did do a bond, and it's something they've been looking to do for a while, and they are making smaller classes. They don't want to raise their class size, which I understand and really appreciate. There are seniors at different levels, and there are things that are coming in like apartments, condos, co-ops, townhouses, and they offer different price ranges. My mom was an apartment dweller her whole life. She could not afford to move into different things, and I understand that completely. But she found a place, she loved it, she did not move, she passed in that apartment, and that was what she wanted.
Did we establish 2 levels?
Okay. It's been said that first-time candidates lack municipal experience, but every member of town board was a first-time candidate at one point. What is your position on the trade-off between experience and fresh ideas?
So I think everyone that comes in, whether they have municipal experience or not, has a fresh idea. I believe that there are other ways to have municipal experience. So I dealt with the Conservation Board quite a bit over some property. I learned a lot. I had to go to zoning. I learned a lot from zoning. So I was able to gain some municipal experience there. I also was able to gain municipal experience in the business world every time we opened a restaurant in a different municipality. So we learned different things. Different municipalities operated differently. But the big thing is we learned a lot about the laws. We learned about how you can be delayed with EPA and the whole alphabet, DEP, DEC, what people are looking for in a SECRA, what you're looking for in EIS and a full EIS, expanded EIS. So there are all of these different things that you have to learn. And I think that the town board itself, being a council person, if you don't have a ton of experience, is a great way to learn it. I just know that the operation of the town, from a experience point of view, there's not a big learning curve. There's not a learning curve at all. You have to be ready, and you have to be able to get in there and do it. And then you do have a very, very good recording of how you're doing, because the public have that choice to vote you out after 2 years. It's a check and balance. That's the democratic way. But I just could not stress enough, stepping into it, how much the experience I have over 8 years serving the town, plus my years working with the different boards, has meant.
What changes, if any?
Wait. Jeez.
I worked in finance for 10 years. I'm used to being overlooked by forcing my way in. No worries. So I would just like to point out that, yes, experience does matter, but sitting on the board in and of itself does not qualify one for this position. I think that there's a broad swath of resources that is important to rely on, not as a handicap, not as a crutch, but because that's where the expertise comes in. We have a town attorney, we have department heads. That wasn't my rebuttal, okay. So, anywho, onward. You have all of these resources. We have community leaders through our Historic Preservation Commission, our Recs Department. We have so many resources that it is important to bring in and bring that expertise to bear. What it's important to realize with the supervisor role is that's a leadership role. It's not just the doing of the day-to-day. You need to have a vision for the future. So it's not just about rolling up your sleeves and hammering in nails, although I've done plenty of Eagle projects in my day, so I've done that too. But you need to have a vision of where we're going with all of this, and then marshal those resources to actually affect that change. So municipal experience, yes, but the right experience, I think, is more important.
So having both corporate experience and municipal experience, there is a difference. But you're right, it's a management position. I've been a multi-level manager. I've had over 40 managers working under me while training other managers as well. So it's a lot about managing, and it's a lot about that vision. And our vision is pointed out, and we have our comprehensive plan. We have our major projects that we're looking at. So there is a plan, and each department is a part of that. So being able to juggle that, being able to keep it together is what the proper leadership is.
So just in response to that, yes, it is about management, but it's also about keeping these projects ongoing, on time, and on budget. And I would argue that we have many projects, the sewer projects, we have the fluoridation project that have just languished for years without being advanced and certainly without being completed.
What town boards or committees have you served on, and what did you learn from those experiences that will help you manage the town?
I forgot. Let's see, you second.
Go for it.
So I sat on the town board for, no, not at all.
Very nice.
Sat on the town board for 8 years. I've been a liaison for planning, seniors, veterans, economic growth, you say zoning? Conservation, ABACA. All of that you learn the puzzle pieces that work together. It was pointed out, projects languish. If you know the process, it's not the town primarily, or the town board. You have to go through planning. You have to go through ABACA. You have to go through engineering. You have to go through Westchester County Board of Health. You have to go through DEC. You have to go through DEP. We have a watershed here. So these projects, it's great to say, hey, it's languishing, but they're not. And that also affects our fund balance. Because what you have to do is keep money ready to go for these projects. And when you look at fund balance, we had in 2022, I want to say it was a 51% fund balance. 46% or 47% of that is spoken for projects that have to have the money assigned to go. We need to wait for the different areas, though, to give us the okay. We push. The fluoride would be languishing, but Susan was very big on getting that done, and I agreed with her. It needs to be finished. So when I took office, I was on the phone, and I was also at Northern Westchester Joint Waterworks talking with them to get it done. Now we're back waiting for the letters to come out from the Board of Health. All the testing is done, but we can't start it without the proper approval. And understanding that process is what the boards teach you.
So I certainly will cede Mr. Lachterman's 8 years of experience with the town. I can say that I have 30 years of executive board experience. I've been on the board and currently on the board of the Hudson Valley Gateway Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the operations board of the Greater Hudson Valley Boy Scouts of America. I'm on the governance board of the Greater Hudson Valley Boy Scouts of America. I'm also a certified woman-owned business, so I have myself filled out and completed RFPs for municipal work. So I am very familiar with it. And in terms of the fund balance, I would just challenge that number. The last time I looked at the budget, we had about $47 million in fund balance, about $22 million was in excess of what the New York State Comptroller recommends as responsible savings and set aside. I understand that some of that money, yes, it is restricted. Some of that money, yes, it is allocated. But we have about $22 million that could be invested in some of these projects to do an engineering study for, I don't know, solarizing this building that was just, the roof was just redone a couple of years ago, and that project wasn't done. So I would just challenge some of these assumptions that are being asserted.
Well, I'm sure that one member of our audience would not want to see anything on a historical building, but there is an energy audit being performed. We just passed that. Actually, it passed back in 2022, and for some reason, it got lost in the Climate Smart Community task force and the town. So we revised that. We got it out. It was signed off on, and it's an important thing. I've spoken about getting solar in our parking lot, in the commuter lot. We were turned down on it. They didn't want to do the project. So some of these projects are beyond us, but we need to make sure that we keep pushing and keep finding funding.
So I'll just point out in terms of this particular building, first of all, the law was not followed because this is a historic building, and per municipal code, that requires that there be a certificate of appropriateness be requested and supplied by the Historic Commission, which was not done. And further, if that had been done, I'm confident that the Historical Commission could have worked with the town board to solarize the roof here the same way they did with the Yorktown Presbyterian Church, which is also a historic building.
This is an audience question, and it has to do with the violation of the fair campaign practices and the complaints recently. And the question is, what was the complaint against both of you? If you could explain.
So I did file a fair campaign practice complaint against Councilman Lachterman, and I will point out that the complaint, which was incorrect information claiming that he is supervisor, was on the town website. It remains there to this day, was never corrected. In and of itself, using the town website and sharing incorrect information that was not corrected even after it was pointed out, in and of itself, probably not a big deal. But when you pair that with the calling a resident un-American, as he did in a written letter to the editor in the Yorktown News last year for questioning campaign contributions that came from businesses with business currently before the board, raises some eyebrows. When you add to that the ethics law that we just had to have pulled back from the town board meeting this past week, I think it was, that was removing the word indirect from the clause prohibiting direct benefit for your position on the town board or on any of the advisory boards. It raises serious concerns. So that was my complaint. And I fully disclosed at our hearing that yes, I misspoke. I was unaware that I was not allowed to announce that a complaint had been filed. When it was pointed out to me, I immediately took corrective action and I took ownership for that. So their findings notwithstanding, I stand by the complaint, and I think that it is improper and highly questionable to be using town resources and to not correct that misstatement.
So I, in no time, have ever referred to myself as a supervisor, as I'm sure everyone in this room knows. There is a website, which we do not manage out of the supervisor's office, that if you click on the supervisor button, it comes up with my picture and says, Deputy Town Supervisor. I actually refused to even utilize the supervisor's office for the first month that Tommy had passed away. It is not a job that I'm like, oh my God, I want this. So we'll clear that. As for the complaint, I find it highly unethical that you say, hey, I'm going to complain, and although I was found that there was no finding, that the governing body that is bipartisan says, hey, you know what? There's nothing here. He's acting by local law and by state law in his responsibility when he took his oath to step in, I would imagine that that would be enough, not to double down on Facebook or triple down in the paper, especially someone who values scouting values so much. It's kind of frustrating, to be honest with you, to be dealing with that. But then it was leaked out. It was being used, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, to be weaponized. And that's a problem. You should not be weaponizing complaints. As for campaign contributions, they have been around forever. And it is your right to put the money wherever you want for whatever candidate you see. And if we take away your First Amendment right, it is absolutely un-American. And I will stand by that every day, twice on Sunday, because that's what I believe in. First Amendment, support whoever you want. Whether it's me, whether it's Jann, anyone. That is your right. Thank you.
So in terms of whether or not you've presented yourself as supervisor, it appears in several places, including on the announcement about the special election where you have yourself quoted twice, once represented as supervisor, regardless of the fact that in the resolution that elevated you to deputy supervisor, it clearly states in that resolution that you shall remain a councilman.
In the understanding of law, a deputy supervisor could be anyone in this room. If I do not retain counsel, I do not have a vote. So legally, the operation of voting needs to be there, which is why you retain the council seat. It would not be appropriate to leave the board that short without being able to have diversity of voting. Thank you.
What experience qualifies you to manage the town and make sound decisions in the best interest of our citizens?
So experience, we've spoken about the experience, I think both of us pretty well, and there's varied experience here. I would say probably my biggest experience that has helped me walking in at this point has been multiple management responsibilities. By being able to train, by being able to work with a multitude of people, all races, all colors, all creeds, you learn a lot. You learn how to deal with people. I've been dealing with people as I started in the hospitality industry for over 40 years. I've worked with different clubs within our community, the Lions, the Sons of the American Legion, Yorktown Against Heroin. I've had an opportunity to really get in there and be able to learn what our needs are, what our people are looking for, and what we're able to affect as a government. So that's probably my biggest help in this responsibility.
So I think one of the things, I bring a number of things to the table. Having worked in finance for 10 years, clearly a male-dominated field, back then it still is, but and having to stand my own, working with people who were very different from me, had very different attitudes from me, but being able to build coalitions around a diverse group of stakeholders to come up with a solid solution for any given problem. I think that I have proven myself to be a respectful listener for even people that I disagree with. And I think that it's not just me saying that it's imperative to have a diverse board with diverse thinking and people who are willing to challenge one another in a respectful way. That many universities, MBA programs, Harvard Business Review have done studies that have shown having a diverse board makes better decisions.
So I will say that I believe in diversity. I believe in diverse decision process, and we have that. It has nothing to do with political ideology. It has to do with people's thought process. Although today I understand the letter went out from a former official in our town, basically lumping all Republicans into one little ball and saying vote for Jann because Trump, abortion, undemocratic thinking. This is not what our government is about and not what we're about. It's about the diversity that we have in thought as a person, not as a party.
Well, for the record, that letter did not come out from the campaign.
Audience question. So, do you support banning ATVs from all town property, parks, trails, roads?
Yes, I do. And here's why. First of all, we have a very dedicated group of volunteers who maintain many of these trails. They're hiking trails and they are biking trails. And again, you go back to the ATV law. First of all, that took 2 years to come out after the Trail Commission or the trail group was begging to have something come forth. After a man was almost killed, and I'm not saying that hyperbolically, he was literally almost killed, begging for this law, and it came out and just lumped everything together without distinction between what an ATV is and where they could responsibly be ridden, and e-bikes and mopeds. So it goes to, yes, we need to ban ATVs from town property. We don't have any appropriate location currently on town property that would be a safe place for these ATVs to ride. I think that we need to really think about how we write these laws, and we need to look at best practices and make sure that we are distinguishing between ATVs and e-bikes to make sure that we have appropriate use of appropriate facilities at appropriate times.
I do believe, and we also do ban ATVs on all town property. As Jann pointed out, there is no place dedicated for them. I'll talk a little bit about the lumping of things together because this was part of a public hearing and this was something that was sort of left out there. When this all started, we were also having problems with e-bikes. We had an older gentleman, Dan Strauss, say how he was driving his car, leaving the Triangle Shopping Center, and someone pulled out right in front of him on an e-bike, right across the sidewalk, which they're not following the vehicular laws and the bicycle laws that are in New York State. We speak about someone getting injured. One of the biggest issues that we have with the ATV law is you can't legislate good behavior. The person was the problem, not the ATV. And we need to make sure that we find a way to make that ATV law more responsive. We had some great comments from the public hearing. I'm looking into one that Jay Kopstein had made. We are researching the legality of it, elevating everything to a misdemeanor so it could be investigatory and not have to worry about being witnessed by a police officer. We also spoke with the police chief. The thing had come up about fining. Matter of fact, I think that was Dan Strauss also. Raising the fines and making it something that is much more teeth, has much more teeth, and something that bites, and something that stings, and something that makes a parent think, hey, I'm not going to let my kid out there on this, because that's where it is. It's the parents letting them out. But we have to make sure that our trails are safe, and that is what our law is looking to do. And ATVs being on our trails is not part of that.
I would just like to say, I think, first of all, waiting 2 years to put together a subpar law is really just not acceptable. I think we need to do better.
As I said, we want to make sure that it's right. There were other things. The accident was not 2 years ago, but we have had unregistered vehicle laws that affect ATVs, snowmobiles, and different things. It just needs to be more inclusive of the thought of our community, as we found out at the meeting. And if you want us to take away the democratic process, I don't think that's going to happen with our current board. We will put out the laws, we will let the public comment on it, and we will hear what the people have to say.
Building construction going on in our town, and we have so many. Why is it, can you hear me? Why is there so much building construction going on in Yorktown when we have so many empty stores? Want to repeat the question, maybe your microphone is better.
No, who's this first one? Do you know what was for? No. All right, why is there so much building going on when there are areas that need redevelopment? Is that the empty stores? Well, today we did have an announcement about the Kmart being subdivided into 4, and we have two new national chains moving into Yorktown, 5 Below and Michael. We also have TJ Maxx moving over. We have Crumble Cookie opening up by BJ's. We have 2 more people looking to sign leases in the Yorktown Green, and we will hopefully by Monday be celebrating the grand opening of New York's first Nathan's / Mr. Softy store that's all around California. So looking forward to that one. Sorry, Carol, I know there might be competition for your business. That being said, I've always been of the belief structure that when you develop and when you have good properties, the properties you need development will be developing. So I was talking with one of the principals at the Triangle Shopping Center. We should have an announcement next month about that. We have people putting money into Yorktown. Popeyes came, Wendy's. We have different mom and pops opening all over. This is what happens when you have that growth and that revitalization. And a lot of that is spurred by our housing, our diverse housing stock. How many years were we trying to get Trader Joe into town? They finally came. It wasn't because something miraculously changed in the existing stuff. They were able to build to suit. It was important to them. But with Trader Joe's comes other people. And that's really what the key is. It's all a vision of how you move forward and how you manage to bring the businesses in. They want to be here if the conditions are right. And as a business owner, I can't tell you that enough.
So I think I just kind of want to go back to the original question, which was, again, why is there so much new building going in when we have so many vacant buildings in town? And I think that's a really important question. And one of the things that I think we can point to is our 485B law, which creates tax exemptions for improvements on property, regardless of whether that property is developed currently or not. So what I have been saying for some time is we need to reevaluate that law and make sure that it is incentivizing the right kind of redevelopment over new development. And listen, we're not saying that you can't come in and build on your property, but what we want to do is really focus incentives where we want to encourage, just like with our children, right? We want to encourage the kind of behavior we want to see. So by reevaluating and updating our 485B law to focus on redevelopment over new development, we get more of what we want. And we can incentivize redevelopment, reimagining the blighted buildings that we have, both, Yorktown Heights, up in Shrub Oak. We've got that tire center that's been there as long as I've lived here, that has just been sitting there. We can create incentives to get more of the kinds of new infrastructure that we want over the new development. Actually, no, I want to add to that, but thank you. One of the things that I wanted to say also was just to point out that a lot of these new stores that we're seeing really, are just stores moving from one location to the other. So we really want to make sure that we're focusing on getting more new businesses in.
So Cookie Crumble, not a business moving. Michael's never in Yorktown. 5 Below, never in Yorktown. Mr. Softy, never in Yorktown. But we look at the 485B, and I've said it before. New will make the people with the old reinvest. The 485B has been here a long time, and those places have not chosen to come in yet and do something. I say yet because I know one of them is like, hey, I got to do something, otherwise I'm gonna be defunct, and that's important. And sometimes you have to have a behavior to get a behavior.
So I would just point out too that leaving vacant buildings, those landlords get a tax write-off for that building being vacant. One of the things I was talking about, and actually I got this idea from listening to our residents, and somebody had pointed out that they have what's called a vacant building registry down county. And what that does is there's a municipal law on the books that if you have about a year once a building goes vacant or once a unit goes vacant to refurbish, after which you have to register on the vacant building registry, which negates that tax exemption.
Questions? The town board recently passed a moratorium on large-scale solar farm installations while it considers amendments to the current law. What amendments do you think are needed?
Well, I think we need to think about how those installations are being maintained. We have to think about where they're sited. We have to think about other kinds of solar installations. You know, again, I think that it was overly broad. I think that law that with the moratorium, it also excludes installations such as the solar canopies that Croton, for example, just put on their firehouse. They're actually, those solar installations were set up on the firehouse, and I think there was one other building over there. Fully funded through grants, and they're now actually drawing revenue from those solar installations. I think it's really important to be precise in your language and where and how you apply different rules. So I think a large-scale solar farm is different than a large-scale solar roof, which is very different than a home roof. So I think we have to be very careful in how we parse the language.
So the law does address large-scale solar farms, and that's a moratorium. And you learn, you know what, solar farms are pretty new to this area. And as they come out, we are going to learn. One of the reasons for the moratorium is that the one that was built over by Jefferson Valley had some questionable things. Now, some of them may dissolve on us because in 5 years that growth will be an issue or won't be an issue. So we want to see, though, are we good with our borders? Are we good with the acreage? I definitely believe in roof solar because I have it at my own house. And I've been looking for it for our buildings. That's one of the things I tasked the Climate Smart Community Task Force with. We want to look into it. We'd like to get grants for it. We had a solar canopy that was going to be built. Unfortunately, the company, which was recommended to us by one of the people on our Climate Smart Community Task Force, sort of fell apart on us, and they couldn't get it over the finish line. And they kept trying to change the agreement, which would not have been in the best interest of the people of our town. So we will keep looking at it. We will keep pushing forward. I highly recommend anyone who can put solar on your roof. We will look to do it for all of our town buildings that we can. And we would also look at other solar canopy ideas. Matter of fact, we have a big one that's coming online soon at IBM. And I was 100% behind it. I had been through all the planning on it, and I think it's a great location for it. But we will keep trying to push forward, though, and you know, it's an evolving thing. Thank you.
Well, I applaud you for having solar on your roof. I think I would like to see that same enthusiasm come from, you know, in terms of town projects. You know, again, I've just come back to, we had a perfect opportunity here at the community center to have that installed, and we missed that opportunity. And I also would just kind of ask you to be a little bit more firm in your position. I know you went on Fox and Friends over the summer and you were railing against solar, so, you know, I know you talk a lot about kind of the gotcha moments. It's not a gotcha moment. I would like to know clearly where you stand.
So I went on Fox and Friends and I railed against a solar-powered ice cream truck in New York City. I will tell you, they wouldn't let me put solar on my roof for over a year because there were trees that got cut, they got knocked down by a hurricane finally, and that's the only way we proved it. If you were to carry around the batteries and the solar to run an ice cream truck all day, you will actually burn more rubber, have more emissions, and have to try to have your truck towed out when you're in the middle of buildings and you can't get solar power. Thank you.
volunteer to serve on any town board or committee to familiarize yourself with town procedures? If yes, which board or committee?
We need a test time.
I go first.
Go for it.
So, sure, the question was, have you ever volunteered for any town board or town committee to serve?
Familiarize yourself
To
with
familiarize
town
yourself
procedures.
with the town business. So I personally, before I ran for the council, did not volunteer on a board, but I was before many of the boards. My father-in-law had bought property. He gave my wife and I a lot as a gift for our wedding, and we were going to build a house on it. I learned a lot. I was before the town board, the conservation board, the zoning board, and it was a process that went on for over 3.5 years. I got quite the education from that. Then when I went on the town board, I requested to be a liaison for many of those same boards because I wanted to learn the intricacies. I wanted to learn how can I help a resident who has a problem get through the process. That's what we're here for. We're here for the residents. We're here to make sure that we can help you. We are here to make sure that your projects come to fruition. And when I say resident, I do not just mean our residential. I mean our commercial. That's a big part of the job, is understanding where do we go to move things forward. Yorktown for years had a very, very bad reputation because things would get held up. I know a restaurant owner who went out of business. It took him 13 months to get open. And the only reason he got open was a change in the government at the time. By the time a business gets their 3 free months and then have to pay for another 10 before they could open their doors, they're out of business. You are not going to survive. So it's important for us to be able to guide all of our residents, commercial and residential, through the process. And that's why I volunteered to be the liaison on these boards on my nights off. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you read the question again?
It had to do with asking about the volunteer positions you held with the town prior
Gotcha.
to.
Okay, thank you. So I have, in order to educate myself about the inner workings of municipal government, watched videos. We have all of our town boards, all of our town board meetings, our advisory board meetings are available online. You can watch them, you can read the minutes made available publicly through our town website. In fact, there was, I'm embarrassed to say, on a Friday night watching videos, and somebody had called, a friend had called and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm watching the town board meeting," and she thought I was crazy. But yeah, absolutely, that information is publicly available to any resident who wants to educate themselves more about what's going on in town, and I encourage people to do so. That's how I learned about all of the things that are concerning me about my community, and that's why I started getting involved and started attending board meetings and listening to other residents and talking to other residents to see what could be done to make a difference in the community.
So I will say that proper governance and being able to manage and being able to move people in the right direction cannot be learned on a YouTube video. You need to be a part of the process. It is great to say I've watched it, but unless you've lived it, unless you've experienced it, you've actually been there volunteering and dealing with it on a one-on-one basis, it is not the same. I can guarantee you that.
Well, I would like to just point out that 30 years of executive board experience and 25 years owning my own business, being a business leader in the community, mentoring many other business leaders, including Sergio. Actually, Sergio was in one of my entrepreneurial leadership for education. What was it, Sergio? It was the entrepreneurial excellence class at the community college. I've worked with many, many businesses, many organizations in the town, and so it's those relationships that really make the difference in terms of how you lead and how you are effective.
You also helped me with my first
Oh,
website.
that's right, I did that.
Okay, this is the final question. Are you in favor of term limits for the town board? Some people believe turnover brings new people with fresh ideas. Others believe that voters should have the final say. What do you see as the pros and cons of term limits?
Excellent.
I think I am.
You need a chest.
No.
Oh.
There you go.
There you go. All right. So term limits, that's actually a really good question. I have to confess, I don't have a real strong position on either. I think that they probably are generally a good idea. I know a lot of people say, well, the term limits are, every November, or in this case, April. I have mixed feelings about it, to be truthful with you. There are advantages. I think that having fresh blood coming into any organization, any board, is a good thing. But I also think that, I also understand the argument about, if you're doing a good job and you deserve to, and the residents and the voters think that you deserve to stay, I think that there's something there too. So I know that's not a probably very satisfying answer,
But it's a very democratic answer. So, you know what, Jan's right. There is that term limit that comes up every other November, every fourth November for people on the town board. It is important that the voters have a say. I actually self-imposed a term limit of 12 years on myself, three elections as a councilman. That was going to be it for me. The fact that the supervisor seat opened up, not, like Lyndon Johnson said, I always wanted to be president, but not this way after Kennedy's assassination. This is something that I never would have done. I did not have the desire, but I do have a responsibility to the people that elected me 3 times to try to take that knowledge that I've garnered and put it to use for the betterment of my town. It's something that, if not in check, and if someone doesn't have the proper moral compass, it could probably get out of control. And we could look at our federal government for that. It's the only time I'll bring it in, because I think that we have people that have been serving way, way too long. It's not a 50, 60-year career. Both of us are people with our own businesses. Both of us understand that their priorities in life, and I think that's an important aspect. So, term limits should be up to the people, definitely, but even up to the candidate to make that decision. I personally feel that we also have to keep in mind those people that are running and may want to be pensionable. So if you set a term limit, it should be allowable to let them gain a pension.
Well, I'm with you on that. Actually, I had no intentions of going into politics, and I think that's, I've gone on record of saying that. I was approached actually a number of times by different people to ask me to run and to ask me to use my experience on various boards, working with businesses, working with nonprofits, working with any number of different community organizations, and to bring that expertise to bear for our community. And so I sort of felt like, my kids are grown, I have my own business, and I have the privilege of being able to do so, so I am.
And similarly, I came to a point in my career where I was able to give the time in, and I actually had 2 people, one from either party, and one of them this building is named after, who convinced me that it's something I needed to do, based on my time in the community, based on what I've done in the town and done in business. They said that, you know what, you really should look at this because your moral compass is right. You want to do good for your family, for your friends, for your community, and that's what it's about. So once again, I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank our moderators, our timekeepers, and both of our parties for putting this together. It is important for the people who want to serve you to be able to come up and have that open debate and let you know our ideas. It's also very important for us to share our experience and our experiences through the town and through life. So I've served here for 8 years. We've spoken a lot about infrastructure. We have a tremendous amount of projects that are in the works. We've spoken about how things could get stalled. I will guarantee you that for my management style, it is not our people stalling them. Because if someone is, they're in my office every other day. I will also say that as you look at things and the things that are going, we've been here, or I've been here 3 months pretty much. We've gotten quite a few things done, to the point where I was criticized for the amount of work we're doing. But I was also praised by one of our other public officials, saying this stuff needs to get done. And it is important. It's important for the town that we do your business and put it forward. We spoke about development, and I will say once again, I believe when you have like 45B and people come in and do things, even if it's new, it's very, very effective. I'll use one project in particular. $18,000 for the lot that was an old abandoned hotel. $190,000 this year. Now this is in local and county taxes. Let me be clear on that. They got a rebate of $14,000, but they put $3.6 million into the roadway and into sewers. That's a Lowe's project. That was all new. What has that done for our community? What has that brought here? What economic stability have we gained from that? Thank you all and have a great night.
So I also want to thank you all for your attention. And I think it's fair to say that one thing that Councilman Lachterman and I agree on is that experience does matter. In fact, as I was preparing for tonight, it calls to mind of when I was studying for my Series 7 financial securities license years ago. And the class was a mix of students who were both new to the industry, to the financial industry, and some who had been around a while. And the teacher had pointed out to us that those who were new to the industry actually had a slight leg up when it came to preparing for the exam, because we hadn't gotten used to doing things the wrong way. And so I went on to pass my license, you'll be happy to know. But I did kind of take that lesson with me that, you have to always challenge yourself, make sure that you are continuing to do things the right way. And that's what I'm going to bring if I'm elected supervisor. Voters need to evaluate whether the experience has translated into tangible accomplishments that truly benefit our community. Have workable solutions been implemented to address key issues? Has a clear, positive vision for Yorktown's future been articulated and advanced? Merely occupying a seat is not enough. I pledge to use my experience to bring more transparency to town government and ensure important decisions impacting Yorktown are made in a full public view and with public input. To focus on responsible redevelopment that moves our town forward. To make real plans for infrastructure improvements and transitioning to more sustainable practices. My financial background, entrepreneurial leadership, and decades of nonprofit executive board experience have equipped me with real-world skills to succeed. To build coalitions, think strategically, and drive initiatives from concept to execution. I am proud to have earned the endorsement of Yorktown Democratic Committee, the Working Families Party, Eleanor's Legacy, SWAC PAC, Sierra Club Atlantic Chapter, and Women Democrats of Westchester. Thank you. Have a great night.